Teachers of Reddit, what's something you overheard, but you wish you didn't? I guess it isn't that I overheard it, but I really like to keep up with the kids' personal lives. Over the years they grow to trust me, and every once in a while, a student drops a huge gob on me that makes me feel quite helpless for a while. Things like, my parents are getting divorced this week and neither one wants me. Or my sister got killed trying to stop a fight. Or I hate my friends and I hate myself for liking them. But I don't want to be alone. I do my best for them. One student telling his friend he's changed his university applications to go to the same uni as his girlfriend. Terrible move. Could be terrible or great. Only time will tell. Narrator, odds are on terrible. That he doesn't like it when mom gives massages in the basement because he can hear everything. I had a high school senior come to school in the morning straight from the club. Still all glitter covered and in a mostly unbuttoned button down. Except it wasn't totally straight from the club. He let it slip that he had gone home with a woman in her 40s at 5 in the morning. And stayed long enough for her to make her kids and me breakfast. Not a teacher, but in high school was telling a buddy of mine I hate math and that I'm just going to be a porn star. Teacher heard me and she looked over and said, "You're going to starve." I replied, "I'll have plenty to eat on the job." She laughed but probably wished she never heard it. Former college professor here. Oh my god. How do you get your parents to pay you $25,000 a month? Mine only pay me $10,000. Students whispering to each other about how they have absolutely no idea what I was talking about, even though that was my third attempt of trying to explain the same thing to them. This happened last year in an alternative education class I was supplying in. This was a regular high school that just happened to offer an alternative program to some students. A girl was talking about how much school she skipped last year. The guy she is talking to goes, "I missed a lot of days as well, but that's because I spent 2 months in a correctional institute." I'm a teacher's aide. Two students in a certain class makes lewd comments about my body to each other regularly. Administration doesn't do much about it. I've sent them to the principal a few times already. I don't have much power to do anything, so I just kind of tune it out now. You reminded me about the time I pretended to squeeze my biology teacher's booty while he was talking to a student at another table to make my friend laugh, and the teacher's aide saw her face dart. The building in the school in which I taught had only one staff toilet. So if it was occupied we had to use the student toilets. In one such instance, I am in my cubicle when a student walks into the loo room and into another cubicle. What I heard next was the most awful sounding dump. But not too out of the ordinary. It's what he said whilst doing it that shook me up. Screaming as if in pain, he shouted things to the effect of, "Jesus Christ, I deserve this torment. Punish me for my sins. Punish me for my salvation. I bear pain in your name." And other ducked up religious stuff. No idea what was going on. It didn't sound like a kink from the tone. But I remember thinking that if we ever had a school shooting, there was no doubt it would be that guy. Not a teacher, but my mom was. She sometimes had to do bus car pickup duty to make sure kids got their proper rides home. One of the school's nightmare parents was at the car pickup just being a completist to her unfavorite child, who couldn't take it and started to cry. He sobbingly asked her why he couldn't go live with his dad. That way, she wouldn't have to be always mad at him anymore. "Because he wants you," she huffed, slammed the car door, and drove off. Not being able to get that parent on any of her crap remained one of my mom's big regrets. Not a teacher, but I was on the bus home when a few high school students came and sat behind me. And one kid says to the other, "I think I must be cold-blooded because I'm cold all the time." Her friend says back to her, "Of course you're cold-blooded. You're a mammal. All mammals are cold-blooded." I have never wanted to give up more in my life. Not a teacher, but a student in health class freshman year. This girl that was a junior was talking about sucking big dick and said, "This guy told me to suck his big dick," and I said, "Hell no, that sheet looks like a elephant hair." She said the guy offered to hold the skin back and the teacher loudly said, "Stop." I'm a lunch aide at a middle school. The company I work for says we are also teachers. Although I call bullshit on that. But anyways. Working in a middle school with 8th and 9th graders, you hear a lot of vulgar things. I've learned to just ignore the shit they say. I had one student put a banana in the zipper of his pants and tell his friends at the table to unpeel his banana and take a ducking bite. Also heard a guy call this girl a super hunt. I pretend like I don't hear them. I've even told students that as long as they don't say it in front of the principal, I don't care. But if the principal hears and asks me to point them out, I'm not gonna lie about it. My friend was a sub for a few years. In a high school class. He overheard a girl giving another girl one of her birth control pills. I wonder if they both got pregnant? My mom was a high school librarian. She overheard one girl say to another, "You should just take my birth control today just to be safe. I'm not going to have sex tonight anyway. So it doesn't matter." I'm not a teacher, but when I was in 7th grade I wore the same shirt 3 days in a row. My friend next to me said if I was poor because I didn't have clothes, and I told him to shut up. My teacher looked at me, and when I made eye contact she looked away. It was so embarrassing. The next day she asked me if everything was fine, and I said yeah, I just really like injustice for all. There was blood everywhere. Kid's dad had attacked mum's new boyfriend, and the boyfriend kicked the shit out of him and tried to slash his throat. Week 2 into my teacher training. In my health class once the teacher asked us what coitus interruptus was, and a kid shouted, "It's when you bow to bust and you pull out." That teacher was weird though. She told us about the biggest big dig she ever saw. Told us how her 4-year-old liked to show off his erections. And told my parents she thought I was depressed because I kept falling asleep in a first period class that I had a 100 average in. Not a teacher. But overheard that a few years ago a middle schooler in the back of class had his pants around his ankles while furiously beating his meat to the teacher. They were making eye contact. She was in shock. He was making a mess under the table. Of course. He was expelled. My friend teaches at a Catholic middle school. He said he once overheard a girl telling her friends she intended to pretend to be pregnant in order to keep her boyfriend from breaking up with her. When he asked her where she got such a manipulative idea, she said, "It worked for my mom." My nephew, when he was 18 or 19, had a similar experience. His ex-girlfriend called him up and said she was 3 months pregnant. He said, "Well, I haven't slept with you in 5 months, so good luck with that." She even tried to send him someone else's ultrasound. Now he's not the sharpest knife in the drawer and barely graduated high school, but glad he was able to do some basic math. That one of my 14-year-old students attended a visit to her sister's sugar daddy while she got their rent paid. Edit. For clarification. The student's sister had a sugar daddy. She went to duck the guy for rent money and brought my student along. Not a teacher. But my class read Beowulf at the beginning of this year. For some reason. The conversation moved to someone's shirt pocket. And one of the guys say you could probably fit a sewer in there. My English teacher, in his late 30s, turns around and begins talking about how there's no way you could fit a sword in the pocket unless you had a letter opener or a really small sword. He went off on this sword rant for a good 3 minutes while the class was trying to correct him. When he finally listened to someone's correction, he got really embarrassed before finishing the whole conversation with, "Well, I guess we can all agree that there's no way a sword could fit in there." Best moment in that class so far. 14-year-old, when they showed 50 Shades on TV yesterday. My big dig was hard the whole time. Too bad dad was just next door. Way too much information. My mom was a teacher's aide and told this kid to stop running in the halls, and he said you were too if your mother was an ostrich. And he continued running. I had a conference once with parents where the dad was big on the military. Let his son bring magazines related to guns, military, etc. to class. I told the father of my concern with the son's admiration of violence. "I don't think he has a problem at all," was his reply. I then told him I overheard his son tell a friend that if his Marine drill sergeant told him to kill his parents, he would. Talk about an awkward silent moment. Heard this from a vice principal about 5 years ago. One time one of the kids told her I like pussy and then proceeded to tell her all the things one could put in a pussy. It was an elementary school. In my French class. I never talked to anyone about anything or French, but the girls in my class, I was the only guy, started talking about how sexy the French teacher was. He stayed quiet but then said I disagree at the end of class. Teachers at an old school used to do an AMA at the end of 6 ed. Walked by the classroom and heard a chick ask the health teacher, "Can you get pregnant if a guy jizzes on your back or in your butt?" I let her know that it wasn't as quiet as she thought. Just for future reference. Apparently, shit gets real during the AMA. I was doing my practice of collage at a special education middle high school. I overheard a kid explaining how to do proper cunnilingus to another. I didn't know what to do. But what I heard him say definitely wasn't wrong. I didn't get a look at them, so I couldn't talk to them or their parents. I just hope they were being safe and that they're okay. Not a teacher. But one time my teacher said silly, so I leaned over to my friend and told him that people who say silly have daddy issues. Well, she heard that and almost called my parents. Not a teacher. But I was setting up to film a video in my high school's media room while two girls talked about how one of them was drug raped at a party on the other side of the room. Their mutual friend saw and allowed it to happen. And laughed when she asked why he didn't help her. I had my headphones on. So maybe they thought I wouldn't hear. Plus they didn't know me then. However, I was only wearing it so people won't bother me while I was working, so no music was playing. It was hard not to notice a girl crying. So I couldn't not listen. Anyway, the victim is now dating one of my friend. And we talked a few times since. Not sure if she forgot I was in the room. Taught at a gymnasium where some students talked about mobile games. I teach game design at another institution which they knew and recognized the game called Gonads. I cannot remember what on earth led to it. If I even knew. But one student gestured to his genitals and enthusiastically goes Gonads. Really not what you want as a female teacher after having only taught that class for a month. Especially not when he did it again and asking get it. That's the one that has both parts downstairs, right? Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Do you think their bobs are natural? Yeah, this is a conversation I overheard between two other staff members. I'm a trans woman. First off, yeah, my bobs are natural. Inject yourself with estrogen long enough and they will grow in. Second, unless you're planning on ducking, I'd really rather you not talk about my genitals at all. One of my teachers told us that a guy in her class told her that sex without condom is amazing. That guy was in 8th grade. Not a teacher. But in high school one of my buddies shared the same science class. The older male teacher had dropped something on the ground and when he bent over to pick it up my buddy yelled, "That's a good way to get a big dig in your ass." Needless to say that was his last day in that class. When we were in high school we had this really attractive calculus teacher. We never said anything to her parents, but it wouldn't surprise me if she overheard some of it. I won't repeat what was said. But imagine 5 or 6 17-year-old kids. And a very attractive, married 25-year-old teacher. Not my proudest moment. Cringing hard at the memory. Sorry Ms. P. I taught a class in a computer lab in the library basement and found a cell phone on the stairs when I was leaving for the day. It was apparently still unlocked because as I was picking it up just brushing the screen opened up the screen. In the few milliseconds it took before I averted my eyes I caught a glimpse of a collection of a bunch of high school dude big dick pics. I pressed lock on the phone and dropped it in the lost and found and pretended it never happened. Obligatory not a teacher. But me and a couple of friends, all in 6th form, were sitting in a room when some younger girls aged between 13 and 14 walked in. Their conversation seems pretty innocuous at first. But then they start saying stuff like I can't wait for my birthday next year. So I can have sex. Bearing in mind that the age of consent is 16 in the UK. And I just want to have sex. So I can get pregnant and have a baby. While me and my friends just sit there bewildered. It turns out that at least one of these girls has a boyfriend aged about 20. So that goes at least some way towards explaining it. I'm not a teacher, but work around kids aging from 5-17 years old for work. My memory is not that great, so I have trained myself to forget most of what I overhear from students. Worst I can remember is a kid using morning wood as an insult. From what I remember, they were arguing and he say, "Bro, you get morning wood." As if that was a regular to try to win via insult. It's nice to learn that 13-years are already ready for arguments online. Camp counselor for 10 years. Worked with the disabled because I am. Overheard a kid I was already worried about make an abuse joke. I had this student for 6 years. He was not the type. And he had gone from outgoing to quiet that year. Turns out he was being abused at another camp. This was a 16-year-old. He was my best camper. Bright. Witty. Wicked smart. Had I been his age he would have been my best friend. When I figured out what was going on and after reporting it to my boss, I got home and tore apart my garage. I was angry, sobbing. He's an adult now. And doing much better. But had I not overheard that joke and asked him about it, I don't know if he would have come forward. I hope so. But I'm not sure. I still get mad as hell when I think about that. Not a teacher, but I sat in the back of geometry in high school and overheard this guy talk about where he ducked his girlfriend. For your information, they duck in her car cause he doesn't want to meet her parents in an awkward situation. Not a teacher. But one time my friend farted and then he looked at me dead in the eye and said, "I think I sheet my pants." Also right then a teacher walked by our lockers. Stopped. Looked at me and then him. And then proceeded to just walk off. So much gossip about me, male and female co-worker. And if they thought we were dating, then they noticed I was there and got asked the question directly. I assured them we are absolutely not dating. What I didn't tell them was I absolutely wish we were. Not a teacher, but when I was 11 I went to a Christian youth camp. I had 8 girls in my cabin and 2 were cousins. Every night they would talk and giggle until 2 AM while everyone else was trying to sleep. Well, at one point I heard one of them say this, "Yeah," then I yelled at him and said, "Just put your finger in, hahaha, just rub it." He was so stupid. Oh my gosh, it was very clear they were talking about oral sex. Keep in mind these are 13-year-old girls. I was pretty mortified. Not something I overheard but was told to me. I was subbing for a high school senior-junior class. The guys in that class were especially obnoxious and thought they had game. One of the boys was bragging to me that he had his teacher's number and that she always flirted with them. I decided not to judge for myself whether it was true or not, but left the teacher a note about what they were saying so that she could handle it. I am a teacher, but I can't think of anything from my own students worth mentioning. Former teacher here. Had a grade 7 class. Showed them a nature documentary. There's a part where it's talking about frogs mating. And how the male smears the female with sperm. An incredibly sweet, innocent looking girl goes, "I must have been a frog in a previous life. Needed brain bleach. Needed all the brain bleach.